This video is being sponsored by Skylum, the creators of LuminarAI, a completely new standalone image editing software powered by AI. And this one has no subscriptions, it's a one-time payment, and it creates some instant magic. I just started using it myself, although I'm an experienced, image editor. I've, done it for years, but I feel like a beginner with zero knowledge could jump right into LuminarAI and come out with some amazing edits to their images. No trouble at all. Now to kick things off with a little food shoot, Elechrome 500 watt ELC Pros, dish reflector, 20-degree grid, large paper diffuser, a light setup that will give me nice highlights with deep but soft shadows. This image is all about using color to make these beautiful eggs pop. All right, here's the image from our egg shoot. I'm just gonna rotate it real quick in the composition tab. It turned out pretty nice. There's a lot that you can do with LuminarAI, some really crazy stuff that I'll get to in just a second. But before I dive in too deep, I kinda wanna see what a normal edit would look like on a simple image like this. I'll start up at the top and work my way down. These sliders can get heavy-handed pretty fast. I'll move into the light tab. There's a ton of stuff here, but I don't think I need to affect the white balance at all just yet. But I'll hit this with some smart contrast though, not too much. And then maybe a little curves. I'll bump up the midtones and drag down those shadows just a tad. And then maybe add a little vignette to darken down my corners. So far, so good, but there's a ton of tabs here, and tabs within tabs. Like inside of color, you can find HSL sliders with hue, saturation, and luminance. But for this image, I wanna finish it up in the professional zone. I shot this with a Canon 50mm lens, which always seems to have a slight bow to it. Under optics, I'll click on the distortion corrections and remove chromatic aberrations. Now these lines still look a little curved, so under these advanced settings, I'll tilt the lens distortion slider just back a few notches. The super contrast right here is really interesting. I'll zoom in on these highlights on these eggs so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll increase the highlights contrast slider. I'll crank it all the way up so you can see these highlights completely disappear. I'll scale it back and the effect is subtle, but it's interesting how it softens that highlight up. The midtones contrast slider works in a very similar fashion. I don't think I need really any on my shadows. Yeah, they look fine. Okay, the last step in this image, I want to bring the green in these herbs and my plate a little closer in color to my background and my fabric here. Now down in the color harmony tab, in the color balance drop down, it starts with the shadows. So I'm gonna slide it over to the cyan side, not too much. These sliders again are pretty heavy-handed, so just a touch, then probably just a bump on the blue slider. That right there is huge. It takes down the warmth in all that green. Maybe a little in the midtones, again lightly towards the cyan and blue sides on the slider. Then in the highlights of these eggs, add some of that warmth back, just a tiny bit. Hit the before and after, and yeah, that looks great. Just a little tug on these sliders. And LuminarAI made quick work editing this image, bringing the colors of the background, the fabric, the herbs, all together to make this subject pop, especially that beautiful teal egg on top. You guys know that I'm mainly a food guy, and there's definitely some cool tools inside of the software for that, but LuminarAI has some mind-blowing features for landscape type shots, and I just have to try them out. But I don't have any new ones to show you. So,
welcome to Nevada.
Some new photos for the new truck. I'm probably the 10,000th person to make this photo here. But it's a good spot. And I'm back. I got this nice chocolate lava cake here from a cookbook shoot. I'll just try out the first tool, Enhance AI. I'll bring that slider up a little bit, and it looks like it added a little bit of contrast to my midtones and brought up those shadows ever so slightly, all in one slider, which gives it that pop factor. And you can add a mask with this little pen icon to selectively add this effect to only areas you want. I like that they give you two different levels for editing. If you want to do something really quickly, just a couple sliders or two, then bam, no problem. But if you want to dive deeper with masks and do a more detailed edit, then there's tools for that too. So this structure AI slider, the AI is actually picking apart the image and analyzing it and choosing where it should apply this effect. For food images, I would just use a tiny bit of this because you can see just a little bit goes a long way. Adding fake sun rays and replacing the skies in your images is kind of what everyone is talking about with LuminarAI. But before I dive into my new truck/landscape photos, I want to try one of these tools on one of my food images first. I have this image of these beautifully styled carrots. It's a very moody shot, and down in the creative section, I have the sun rays tab. I think this cool foreground with these olive branches was just made for this effect. Let's place the sun center probably top right where the light is coming into the frame naturally. I can control the amount, the overall look, the length of the rays. I gotta crank that up to 100. Get them to stretch across the entire frame. Maybe turn up the penetration a bit. That looks like it's affecting the spread of each of these beams, which is cool. Then we have the sun settings to change the size of the sun, which would be really cool if this was peeking up over a mountain or we snuck it somewhere in a valley or something like that in a landscape and nature photo. But for a food photo, I'm thinking that I'm gonna position the sun entirely out of the frame. So I'm not gonna really mess with this tab much. Now down below, you can play with the number of rays that you have. I might decrease the amount. I really just want the effect in the corners of my frame, not so much on the carrots themselves. I found using the randomized slider is a good way to find the pattern that fits your composition. I'm going to slide it over until those rays are really only in the bottom right of the frame. I can move the sun out of the frame now, just out of the top corner here. It's really cool how, as you move the sun, you can see the rays interact with the environment, automatically masking out that light. Just to think back a little while ago, just a couple of years even, these kind of tools were kind of out of reach for most image makers. I mean, merely impossible. And now it's just as easy as a slider. We have two warmth sliders down at the bottom, one for the sun, which isn't in our frame anymore, so I don't really need that, and one for the sun rays themselves. The tone of this image is kind of on the cooler side, so somewhere around here looks good. Just a little bit of warmth to those rays. This sun ray is a great effect. I wouldn't use it for every food image I make, but if you try it out on an image like this where it has some layers and an environment already, this effect just adds a whole new dimension. I mean, the sun ray just adds a wow factor that wasn't there before. Now onto my new Forerunner, parked on a desert rock pile, boring plain sky. Let's see what we can do. Go down to Sky AI, open that up. I have all these different skies to play with. Now I'll find one that kind of fits perfectly. That one's nice. Here, what is this? All right, blue sky number 8. It took like 5 seconds to mask that out. And it even masked out and got into all those little bushes and branches. I mean, that's just crazy magic. That's scary how good that is. Now I can adjust the position of the clouds either, vertically or horizontally to make them fit just perfectly. And maybe after that is finished, I'll go and warm these clouds up a bit just to match my scene a little more. That's some pretty amazing tech. A little wider shot of the Forerunner. The problem is it has to work with these shadows around the truck and the rocks. Wow, yeah, this first one is a winner for sure. Look at that, it gave everything a pinkish hue to match the sky, all those little mountains back there. And then I can go in and adjust this relight strength and saturation if I want. And I guess if I had some water in my image, the AI would also automatically add a reflection of the sky into that lake or whatever. I mean, I'm pretty blown away. If I wanted to replace a sky like this, it would take a while. There would be all the masks and the tools and the layers and the brushes and blending everything together. This is a huge time saver. And plus, if you're new to editing, a job like this would be pretty near impossible right out of the gate. I mean, there's a huge learning curve. And here, it's just a button. I mean, that's scary how easy LuminarAI makes this. Another really cool thing I can do is I can add some fog to my image in this Atmosphere AI tab. Ooh, a layered fog. It adds it behind my car. So what it does is it uses 3D mapping technology to change the look and the amount of fog and where to place it based on the perspective. All of these tools, from the basic color correction sliders to 3D mapping fog into your image, helps the beginners and the pros. I mean, it just helps everyone elevate their stories and kind of, see that vision through till the end, whether it's for social media or if it's for a client. Okay, we have a portrait now. In case you haven't heard, LuminarAI has a key new feature that they just rolled out called Portrait Bokeh AI. This analyzes the photo, finds the person quickly, isolates the subject from the background, and gives you all that bokeh-licious depth of field. Now, who doesn't want that? By the way, the AI knows what photo is and isn't a portrait. I click on this food image and the Portrait Bokeh AI tab is grayed out, but if I switch over to the portrait here, it opens up. I just have to move this slider all the way to 100. I mean, why not? Go big or go home, right? And look at that, that's insane. If I hover my mouse over the image, you'll see the mask it created around me. It's not 100% perfect. You can see it missed some on the camera, but no worries, I can clean that up real quick. Shrink down the radius of my brush, do a couple of passes around the camera, down over here, on the handle, shrink it down some more around the edges, and I think there is a little bit around my ear, and I'm done. And I can just dial this effect back if I want. Maybe drop it to around 75. The AI already created the mask, so we can brighten up the background, add a little glow to my highlights, correct the depth, and refine the edges. But wow, just look at that. That's pretty darn good. The amount of work that it does with just the push of a button and a few sliders, that's pretty epic. There is more to the portrait tab as well. We have Face AI. It lightens just the face. That's pretty mind-blowing. So is the next slider. I can trim off a few pounds if I want. No need to hit the gym anymore. It's my little secret slider. Just don't tell anyone. Oh, and down in the eye tab, I can do a bunch of cool stuff. Change the color of my eyes, blue, green, hazel, gray, cat eyes. Oh, that's the best one. It's crazy how the AI knows where the eyes are and then perfectly applies the effects. Like adding highlights to my iris. There's a ton of stuff here. Improve eyebrows? I don't think I need to improve these bad boys. Down in the mouth tab, I can change the color of my lips, whiten my teeth if they were showing in this picture. There are a ton of features here just for portraits. Down in the Skin AI tab, I can smooth out my skin. Oh, that's too far. Going full on plastic there. I can remove some of the shine here just on my cheek from the window light. There's just a ton of stuff here. If you do any portrait retouching at all, and believe me, I know I've done my fair share in the past. I know just how long it takes. There are tools here that will help speed up your workflow, but that is it for LuminarAI. It is incredible tech packed into this software. If you're a beginner, LuminarAI is very approachable and it's very easy to get a handle on things and start making some amazing edits right away. Even if you're an experienced editor, there's tools in here that will help you speed up your workflow and maybe add some artistic elements that you might not normally do. But a huge shout out and thanks to Skylum and LuminarAI for sponsoring this video. I placed their link down in the description below. Go check them out, and while you're down there, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, drop some comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.